Welcome, everyone, to the Leading Consciously television show, coming to you live from our Internet TV studios right here in Denver, Colorado. Also on YouTube Live and on Google Hangouts and streaming on ConsciouslyMedia.com. I'm your host, Coach Steve Toth, your moderator as well. Our theme today is how to make a difference in the global health crisis. Let me introduce you to our guest cast today. Her name is Angela Levesque. She's joining us from Idaho, where I guess, what do we know about Idaho? Potatoes, right?
Yeah, big ones.
That's where we grew up potatoes.
That is true, yeah.
And let me introduce you to our guest today as well, which is next to Angela there to the right, is Linda Dyer. She's joining us from Australia, where the kangaroos just roaming wild. Welcome to the show.
They're not in the city, so it's okay.
They don't come into the city? Oh, okay. All right. Well, invite them in.
Okay.
Next to Linda, we have Ninon de Verderosa. She's joining us from that place where the lights never go out, and that would be Las Vegas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. We've been having more than lights. We've been having lights from the sky. We've had great thunderstorms and striking lights and everything. It's amazing.
We just had a huge storm.
Oh, you got ours then?
Yeah, it just finished before the show started. Thank goodness. So
wow.
I also went to camping with my kids this weekend.
Wow, where'd you go?
It rained all Friday evening from the time we left town. That was at 6 o'clock. We got there at 10 o'clock and it rained until we put our tents up, and it rained all day Saturday, and here we are. Sunday
well,
we
you
left.
look quite dried out. You look very dried out, so you're okay.
Well, that's a good segue, Steve, on a show that's about health. So I think camping's a really good, healthy activity.
Yeah, absolutely. And we made the best of it. Imagine that, even if it rained. We didn't give up. So, Angela.
Yes.
Our theme today is about global health crisis. And what's interesting to me is that I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't think that there's anything wrong with our food. They don't think there's anything wrong with our air, and they don't think there's anything wrong with our water. They just go on about their life, happy go happy. What's wrong with that picture?
Well, for one thing, I don't necessarily think that they are that happy. I think, when we look at statistics, I think the average American watches TV 35 hours a week. I don't know how much actual joy or happiness that can bring someone. And I think, it's two-parted. I think on one side of things, we have a media, and we have a government, and we have a lot of corporate interest that's involved in how things are presented to us. So I think that there is a very deliberate disinformation campaign on, I don't want to get too conspiracy theory on you, but I think that even if you look at something simple like the food pyramid that we had for years and years and years. Now it's My Plate, which is slightly better. But even if we look at the food pyramid, and it's heavy on carbohydrates, and it doesn't distinguish between healthy fat and bad fat. The message of a low-fat diet has been out there forever, and we're just starting to realize that is that's starting to filter through public health to realize that is not the best way to go. So I think, like I said, on one part there is this very strong misinformation, and I would say a very calculated disinformation campaign that keeps people thinking that they're healthy or happy. And then I think it goes back to the person as well. There's a lot of individual choices. I think that lots of people like to have that quick fix. They like to feel pleasure right in the moment, and they haven't done a lot of inner searching. They haven't spent a lot of time. We don't have a culture that promotes mindfulness and spending some time in solitude and going within. We're not taught that. It's not something that's really promoted. And because we haven't done that, I don't think that we've really explored what it truly means to be happy, and what it really means to bring us that deep sense of joy. So I think that we can't, just say it's government or business or whatever's fault. I think that there is a lot of things going on here that prevents us from really seeing the true picture.
But I think also, don't we haven't we been sort of misled by agencies that we're supposed to trust? Like, I was in the fitness industry for years, and I was a trainer of trainers. And if you had looked at what they were telling us to eat back then, which was a lot of pasta, like you said, a lot of carbohydrate, and, you know, I got lupus. And yet I was training, you know, I had 22 classes a week, and I thought I was indestructible. I was destructible. But it was all of a sudden, it was one day they go, oops, sorry, we made a mistake. And a whole, you know, globe has to change their diet because an authority got it wrong, just like you said with the low-fat diet. They've just whacked a whole bunch more sugar in everything, and everything converts to fat anyway, so, you know, or sugar does. But it was just really interesting that I think we've been misled a lot, and I can't blame people for being on the wrong track.
But also what I wanted to mention, you were talking about that we don't know and this sort of weight thing. There are so many programs out there that are shoved in our face on the internet, on television, about what we should and shouldn't eat. And Linda, you're absolutely right. We're getting fed, no pun intended, the wrong information. But when you say we're not learning and we haven't learned, with all this going on, with all the media and everything, with so much about dieting and how much weight this one lost, and you actually see photographs, you see a whole bunch of stuff. So we are being educated, but are we being educated in the wrong way? I mean, is this just a farce that some people are losing it and some people aren't? Or do these people just not pay attention or listen to any of this stuff that's actually in our face 24 hours a day?
Well, you know...
Well, I think we're being brainwashed. I think that's what you were trying to say. You just didn't say it, Angela. I think the public is being brainwashed. And if I may just share my feeling of what's in the news, and I think that will give everybody a pretty good idea of what we're talking about. Just in the news on television, I don't care which channel, which commercial channel you're going to plug into.
All of them.
All that you get, and this is a half-hour, an hour show on news every day, and this goes on several times. Usually it starts at 5 o'clock with a lot of channels, and then it continues at 10 o'clock, the evening news, and it's just repeated over and over again. And what they really do is they tell us about the weather, and between telling us about the weather a few times, what they tell us about is how we are killing each other all over the world and in our local community. And besides that, every 8 minutes, they will give us commercials about all this stuff that we should be eating, which is all fast food. And that has to do with pizza, that has to do with sandwiches, that has to do with, what else they tell us? Well, they tell us to eat hamburgers, they tell us to eat tacos, and then that goes on every 8 minutes of the program. And then part of that 8 minutes, they also tell us all the pills that we should be taking to cure ourselves because of all this stuff that we're also eating. And that's really what's in the news, and this goes on every day.
It's not a pill for eating, it's a pill for sex.
Non-stop. So how does
and then you need John.
Huh?
Well, we're all saying, you know, you've either got sex going on out there, or how if you take this pill, you can stay and have sex for 8 hours, for 3 hours. But be careful, because this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this can happen to you. Consult your doctor before you take the pill. Why are they advertising it then?
Yeah. So is this do you think this is an accurate description of the news?
Well, I absolutely agree. And to go back to the point about how, you know, is it low fat? Is it paleo diet? You know, we're being bombarded with all of these things, and it comes back to we give a lot of, you know, what's in society and how. So do this, don't do that, eat this, you know, do this exercise. And again, that is a very disempowering, those are disempowering questions to ask. You know, what should I be doing? Because when we pose a question like that, we think that there is just a one-size-fits-all. There's not a one-size-fits-all exercise, drug, food, diet, nutrition. And so it requires us, and as you said, this isn't easy because it's like eat this, then take this medication when all of that causes all those problems, and you start to develop chronic illness, and then we have this pill for you, which actually doesn't do anything but suppresses some of the symptoms that you have. So I totally get that, but what we need to do is more putting out there. We need to get people to ask the why questions. Why? What am I like? Why am I eating? What am I really feeding? These probative questions that get people to look within themselves and say, okay, you know, I notice when I eat a lot of carbohydrates, I feel very bloated and I don't feel very good, and I'm gaseous and all of those wonderful things. How we need people to have a deeper sense of inner introspection. They need to know what's going on in their own bodies, because there isn't just this one diet. Not everybody should eat a paleo diet. Not everybody, I mean, there's compelling evidence for strictly vegan vegetarian diets. There's compelling evidence for paleo diets. There's lots of evidence out there, but what we don't have is people looking in and saying, how do I feel? How does this food make me feel? What is it that I'm really feeding here? Am I feeding boredom? Am I feeding stress, toxicity, being in a toxic relationship every single day? There's all of these things that cause us to be excessive, whether it's our food or
and
drinking too much or all of those things.
An experience or a negative emotion. I mean, quite often, as a coach, I'll come across somebody that's, either got a drug problem, an alcohol problem, a food problem, or a cigarette problem, and I don't think that's their problem. I actually think it's whatever they're suppressing. One of the prime directives of the subconscious mind is to suppress emotions until we're ready to release them. And so by going out and getting all those foods that are not totally good for us, but they somehow feel good on the tongue or what have you, they keep suppressing that emotion. It's like an avoidance system to not bring that up. And so let's suppress it with either of those things, and food being one of them. And of course, then you get together with a group of people that were all treated very similar when they were growing up, and now you've got a gang. Now you've got support. Yeah. They all go out to lunch together.
But also, unfortunately, we all get into habits, and when we get into a habit, we feel very comfortable with that habit. And I think it's with food, but have we totally lost track of our own human body? Because this is what it sounds like, that we have to be told everything of what we should eat, what we shouldn't eat, where we should go, what we should have, what's happening to our... It's our body. Have we lost our mind over our own body?
We're being led. I think we're being led like cows.
Because it seems like this conversation is like we don't have any control over our body at all, over our brain, over anything. That we're just waiting for someone to tell us what to do. Is that what's going on? It seems
like that they know it. They know this. This is not a secret.
Well, maybe that's a habit of being lazy, of getting into the habit of somebody else telling us what to do and how to do it. I don't.
Yeah.
But Nina, and that's an excellent point.
I mean, Angela is very passionate about this, but I'm wondering, has she always been passionate about this? And was there a time in your life where you had some of these issues that we're talking about?
Well, I would say definitely during college. I, like most college students, gained an extra 20, 25 pounds from sheer gluttony. So absolutely. But even growing up, I was always playing a lot of sports, and I've been doing yoga since I was a young adult, and I've always been moving my body. But there was definitely times, especially in my early 20s. I, in fact, used to be a pack-a-day smoker when I was 18, and And so, but to speak to this idea of if it's just individual or if it, is part of the disinformation campaign, and like I really believe that it is both, because I wasn't a pack-a-day smoker just because of peer pressure. Of course, there was a habitual part of that, but there was also, a habit. But for me, what I know, and I actually wrote about this in my book, is that I had so much energy moving through me. I had so much, and this is where I think the spiritual aspects comes into it. I think that we are standing on the precipice of expanded human consciousness. So I think there's these very physical reasons, like our food production and nutrition and environmental toxicities, and Steve was talking about the air, but I also think there's a lot of a spiritual crisis going on that we don't appreciate, that we are spiritual beings. And I believe there's new frequencies. I believe there's all of this stuff shifting, we have this forward momentum that's kind of pushing us forward towards this awakening. And I don't think people, if they're not conscious of it, they try and deal with those that momentum in other ways, and they try to stifle it. At least that was my personal experience. So
because it's so far removed from what they normally do, isn't it? It's so far removed. It's like you want me to believe it's out there in their language. It's out there.
So what did it take for you, Angela? Like, what did something happen? Did something what
triggered you?
Yeah, what made the light bulb to come on?
Well, it's interesting because I do a lot of counseling with people about, smoke. Everybody knows at this point that smoking's bad for them. So it wasn't so much that all of a sudden I woke up one day and thought, oh my goodness, cigarettes are bad for me. I knew the entire time I was, every cigarette I had out of that pack, I knew. But it just, I evolved enough within myself that it no longer fit who I was. It came to this point of being so incongruent with who I was that it started to fall away, because every time, it wasn't that I was self-loathing, but I was just like, this doesn't meet who I want to be anymore. And so it was kind of like a snake shedding its skin, that it was, time for me to just move into something else. And so, I
love what you said. I didn't need it anymore. That's a great line. I didn't need it. And you recognize within your mind and your body you really didn't need this anymore. I used to smoke as well, and I think I was a pack and a half a day. But I was a heavy, first thing in the morning, put the makeup on and a lovely cigarette, Nat Sherman's, which were really strong. I mean, they were really tough. And I played a game with my mind, and I truly believe, and I did this. I played a game where I had cigarettes everywhere, because I always had them everywhere anyway. Were they stronger than I was? And that's how I cured myself, because I decided that this little tiny little round thing was not going to be stronger than what I was within my mind. And it was like sort of, it was playing a game, and I played the game, but unfortunately I won. But I believe that it becomes a habit. I don't believe whether you enjoy it or don't enjoy it, it becomes a habit. It's like anything, you go to wash your hands, hopefully everybody has that habit. But there's certain things in life that we have habits on, and I think we get so used to them that we need to sometimes check ourselves as to what that habit is and how can we change it and to improve ourselves on that. So it's sort of psychological brain thing that I think you're talking about, Angela.
Yes, I do. I absolutely, of course, smoking is a habit. But what I want to comment on what you were saying about having the cigarettes all over the house, and every time you didn't have a cigarette, of course, I always go back to that. There's this beautiful blend of our emotional, spiritual, physical cells and energetic cells. And so every time you didn't have that cigarette, even though they were laying all the way around the house, you build up this sense of personal power. And what I believe when we talk about personal power is this very spiritual force within you that helps you transform and transcend and move into places that you never, or not, don't want to say you never thought possible, but move into that aspect of yourself that is evolving. And I think that, so having that around, even though you kind of describe it as a little game, every time you said no, you built up that power within yourself.
Yeah, and sometimes, and you're right, because sometimes when we're out, and I had obviously went through this too, it's like going into a room and everybody's smoking. Now, I've got to put right back into my mind, pretending I'm in my house and I'm not going to have a cigarette because everybody else is. And, they offer you cigarettes because they know you're a smoker. And you've got, at that particular day, got to turn around and say, no, thank you. That's the tough part, is saying no thank you. And that was my hardest time of the whole thing. Not in my house, when I was outside. It was like, because you love the smell of smoke, obviously. You like it all. And then you're trying to get yourself away from this. So, but I don't think anybody should turn around like I would say, well, I'm not going to go into a smoking place, or don't smoke in front of me. I think that's a cop-out. I think that's something that you should have to do yourself. And just because somebody else is smoking, you should allow them to do that, or not be around them.
That's interesting. It's interesting because I don't smoke. I never have, and I live with people that do smoke, and they even smoke in the house, and it doesn't do anything for me. I don't care. And same thing with drinking. There's people around me that are drinking. I go out all the time with people, and they offer me drinks, and I just say, no, thank you. I I don't want to
But
drink.
you were a drinker, though, Steve. I remember you.
I used to be.
Drinking.
Yeah, I used to be, but since now I have to really pay attention to my health, and my health is more important than the drink, and getting high on drinks. I mean, we we were camping. We were camping this weekend with there was at least 25 to 30 people because we invited a whole bunch of friends, and what happened after the kids went to bed, which was after 10 o'clock. They started to drink heavily, and that scene doesn't do anything for me anymore. It used to, but now today it actually turns me off because I'm experiencing people losing control of themselves. We had this lady that was, we were all sitting around the campfire, and this lady was heavily drinking for hours, never even ate anything. And I counted it. She has fell back on her chair 7 times.
Wow. But I don't think we should judge that. I think that's kind of up to them what they want to do.
I'm not judging it. I'm just being a witness of it.
Aware of it.
And as I am watching it, I'm going like, really? Really? I used to do this? It's like, what the heck?
You know what I have noticed, though, Angela? I've noticed a lot of women drink at home by themselves. I have drink all over the place because of guests that come in or whatever. I don't ever have a drink by myself ever, and I can have anything I want here in my own home, but I just don't do that. I guess I'm not I have had like Steve, I've had my fair share of drinking, but I've never exceeded on drinking. But that's something I've noticed a lot of women do. They say, oh yes, I'd like a nice, shot of scotch and when I get home, and I'm like, it kind of doesn't register in my mind for that. Why? Why do these women do that? To feel power? To feel relief?
I would say most women probably do that as stress relief. They come home, and it's one of those ways to just easily kind of slide into, a calm and relaxed place. I grew up in a very Italian home. I grew up having we would have wine with noodles at the beginning of a meal, an aperitif. So I would come home. I would come home not usually during the week because I do a lot of healing work during the week, but have a glass of wine. But I imagine that and I will include myself in that as a way of stress reduction. Most people don't have a way to deal with their stress, and yet it just keeps mounting and mounting and mounting, and it's just probably a very easy way to just calm down and calm their nerves.
So that comes back to eating. So some people will eat, or some ones will drink, so that we all have these different habits we have. So maybe with the obesity epidemic we have all over the world, that we stress out when we get home. We immediately open the fridge door and sort of, what can we eat? It becomes a habit, but it also becomes a stress release because you can sit down and relax and have a lovely big bag of chips, not realizing you're putting all this fat and all this stuff into your body. And when you do that, what they've put into the ingredients means you want more.
But I think they do know that it's bad for their body. I don't think people are that ignorant. I think they really do know that this isn't totally good for me, but what the heck?
Yeah,
my problem that I'm suppressing is far worse. So, what's a packet of chips going to do? It's not going to hurt me. I'll just suppress it one day longer. When I used to smoke, it was only very, very little, funnily enough, and I picked it up in America when I was at university because everyone smoked, and, it was handed around the Marlboro. Anyway, one day I took one, and I used to lie on the floor because that was the only time I did nothing, was when I had a cigarette. I was doing a master's degree. I was looking after the first coeducational dorm on campus. I had a whopping schedule, which is nothing unusual for me. But anyway, when I had a cigarette, I could lie on the floor like an aeroplane and smoke this cigarette. It was so funny. It was my 10 minutes of peace. And that's right, and I'm really glad that down the track when I came back to Australia and I was setting up a health department within a hospital, they were changing the face of hospitals, or I was, And the boss was walking around, and I went, oh my gosh, and I shoved the cigarette in the top drawer of my desk, and there's this smoke coming out of the top drawer. And he said, there is a cigarette. And I went, oh, is it? And I went, you know what, I don't even like enough to have to hide them from the boss. What am I doing? And it was that day. And then I fell pregnant, and then I said to myself, you know what, I would never harm my child, ever. And so every time I wanted to take up smoking again, I went, you know what, I'm going to pretend I'm pregnant, can't smoke, I would never harm my child. Okay. And honestly, it's such an addictive thing, even though you only smoke 1 or 2 a day. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It can be so addictive that I reckon I said that for about 2 years. No, I'm not, because I quite like the smell of some cigarettes. But Steve, one thing you said about I don't care that people smoke in my house, if I'm going to look after my body, I would absolutely care about that, because one of my coaching clients ended up taking his own life because he contracted emphysema and he didn't smoke. The people in his house smoked. Both his parents smoked in house, and he contracted emphysema from their cigarette smoke. So just something I picked up on, because my husband didn't smoke either. And he worked in catering, and of course all the people in the bar that he did the functions at, they all smoked, and he would come home, his jumpers, I remember his shirts, everything stunk of cigarettes. And I said to him, it'd be good to get your lungs checked just to make sure that you're not taking in their fumes. It's quite interesting that we can be a passive smoker without even touching them.
Absolutely. Well, my husband used to smoke cigars. I mean, he used to smoke 5 or 10 cigars a day, and I would be next to him in this lovely whiff of... I'm just realizing what damage this must have done to me. I better start checking myself out. Wow. Yeah, I can understand.
Well, I am kind of noticing a common thread in all of this conversation and dialogue we're having, and what I'm noticing is that just in general, humanity is using all these substances like cigarettes, drinking, drugs, whatever, to not deal. What is it that we don't want to deal with?
Well, as I mentioned, stress is huge. Stress, I think 75 to 90% of doctors' visits are related either directly or indirectly to stress. So that's huge. And we, like I said at the very beginning, it's not part of our culture where we teach people to take time out, where we tell them, you've got to spend some time with conscious breath or meditation, or having a bath every night where you can light some candles and put some aromatherapy in the bath, and we're not dealing with that. So stress is one. Another thing I think... Can
I just interrupt you 1 second? Can you explain what stress is? What exactly, we talk about we're stressed here, we're stressed there, but what exactly is it for that one person? Because we're all individuals.
Yes. Well, the way that I like to define stress is when our perceived, and that's very important, resources don't meet our perceived demands. So we are being asked to do more than we feel we have the capacity to do or to deal with. And so the reason I like to bring up the perceived is because it is a very mental component. So what for one person might be, a deadline that seems just, just something that they can't meet, and just causes all this huge cascade of hormones that race through the body. Another person might look at it more as a challenge and say, oh yeah, I really like my job and I can't wait to dig into that project. So it's really an individual response to feeling like they don't possess what it takes to take care of the demands that are being asked of them.
So in other words, they're saying that they get stressed out because if I don't get this finished in time, I'm going to get fired and I won't have a job. That's probably where it comes down to. So I stress out.
But that's just a small percentage. I mean, people are primarily stressed out about money. They stressed out about relationships. They stressed out about
everything.
Yeah.
Why?
That's still just a small part. The stuff that we haven't even touched yet is there are all kinds of things we can be stressed out about that we don't even know about.
I think we stress about the stuff.
It's a really good point.
Go ahead.
We could all be lined up and be given the same situation. So it's not the situation that's stressful, it's how we cope with the situation.
That's
So
exactly right.
it's and also the other thing that I really want to bring up here, being in fitness originally, is what it's doing inside. I know what happened to me. I mean, I went down like a ton of bricks because I thought I was infallible. I mean, here I was playing tennis for 2 hours a day, doing 2 degrees in 2 years, swimming a mile a day, running across the Canadian Rockies at minus 35. I thought I could do everything. I had so much natural energy, but I wore out. And what happens in the body is we build up what we call cortical steroids. And those cortical steroids are lethal. So when you really get that picture that inside of you, you're building up an illness, building up disease from your stress, it may be that you go to say, you know what, there's just got to be one thing that I can cut out this week that might just help me become more well within myself.
Very well
And
said.
that's how it can start from just one thing. I'm going to let go of the morning tea, or I'm going to let go of the cigarette, or I'm going to let go of that drink I have on a Friday night, whatever it is.
But,
Just to make that decision to make a change.
And I think half the things we worry about that actually never come to fruition. Majority of stuff we worry about and we fret. I'm personally not one of those people because I kind of calculate, is it going to do me any good worrying about this? Because I'm not going to change anything in the entire world worrying about it. So I put it to one side. Unfortunately, I've trained myself over the years with that. But we truly worry about things that never are going to happen.
Yes, I call those mind-made anxieties. And that, again, it goes back to us, not when we're in the present moment. So much of stress comes from living in the past and, reliving things that we can't change. Or, like you said, thinking about things that may or may not even happen in the future. And that is a huge thing. But so then as soon as we start to bring our attention and our awareness in the present moment, all of our thinking isn't filtered through our memory. So that means there's not the same amount of anxiety that builds because it's not something that our mind is looking back to and saying, okay, how do I know about this? Okay, and then it's going through the files in your mind and saying, oh, this is a bad situation, even if you're not consciously aware of what it's recalling. And so you're bringing it here, and then all of a sudden you feel this rise of anxiety in your body, and you start thinking of scenarios. Well, what's going to happen now? What's going to happen now? And that creates a huge amount of stress. So
it's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not.
It's our perception, but it's also that we put too much stuff on our plate. Now we have our smartphones, so we're always accessible. I have a 6-year-old. I have people asking me all the time, so what instrument he's going to play? What sports do you have him in? And I'm like, he's 6. We go to the pool and we go for a walk. We walk the dog. And why do we have to bring so much into our life that just causes us? Because stress is a lot of, we talk about finances, but a lot of it has to do with not feeling like we have enough time to get stuff done. And so just like you said, letting go of some things. My 6-year-old doesn't need to do 5 different things every night of the week.
That will confuse the kid. And number one, that'll confuse the kid completely, and then the kid will end up learning nothing because there's too many things.
Surprisingly enough, those little kids get harassed at school. Really interesting, because my son, when he was 5, I purposely didn't put him into competition sports, even though I was in fitness myself. I thought, you know what, let's just play like your child. But by 6 years of age, he was coming home and telling me that kids at school were giving him a hard time because he wasn't in one of the weekend sports. And I said, well, what do you want to play, honey? And he said, you know that ball that goes around? He said, I want to play that, not the pointy one.
Soccer ball.
So yeah, I ended up being the coach and for the next 10 years. But anyway, he ended up playing soccer, and in fact he loved it. But it was, the kids at school said, how come you don't play sport? How come you're not in our competition on the weekend? These kids, this peer group, right from a really early age, it's quite interesting.
It's too much sometimes for a child to take in.
So I want to make sure that we just get back real quick what we talked about at the beginning, which is the food supply, the air supply, and the water supply. That these 3 things, I believe, and it's been proven to me, that there's so many bad things in all of these that are really affecting us, and these are the things that we're not even aware of. It totally stresses us out. All of our organs are stressed out. We are nutritionally bankrupt. And people don't want to talk about this. And I want to use this opportunity on the show to do some education, Angela. What is it that people need to be doing in order to not to be nutritionally bankrupt? Because I feel that's the number one problem that we're having.
Yeah.
Number one problem we are having.
Well, and that's interesting because, like you said, on one hand we're obese, but we're malnourished at the same time because we are, like you said, nutritionally bankrupt. And see, this is a really big topic because it's not even so much that, obviously people need to eat way more vegetables. They need to eat a lot, some fruit as well, a lot of different colors, but it goes back again to that global thing. We need to produce our food in ways that doesn't strip it of all of its nutrients. We need to produce our food in ways that is in harmony with the natural environment. And when we do that, we make more nutritious food so that when we're eating it, they just did this study. There's been lots of studies that have said organically grown food is nutritionally equivalent to regular food that you buy that's not organic. And recently, and of course those studies are always funded by large multinationals that have a vested interest in saying that. But so somebody just did a meta-analysis of like 533 studies or something saying that no, in fact, organic food not only is it better for the earth, you get less pesticide residue, but there's also more nutrients because our soil is infused with all of those minerals that our bodies need to nourish. So it is, I would love, I can, and we can do this, and we can talk about good nutrition and eating lots of different colors of fruits and vegetables, eating really high quality fat, high quality meat, and I personally think that we eat way too many carbohydrates. I think a lot of our carbohydrates should be coming from our fruits and vegetables, and then really high quality grains as well. So we can talk about the nutritional aspects, but I think that there is a larger conversation about our methods of food production that also need to be addressed.
Yes, I agree with you, but unfortunately, that's not something we can control right now. I think each individual person, as they are watching this, and even watching it live or watching it later as a replay, we want to be able to give them some things that they can do right now, because there's all kinds of things that people can do right now to create a better life for everybody in terms of our health. So there's.
Can I interject and just give you two opportunities here? There's in NLP, one of the things we teach around anxiety or stress is to really understand that your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. I think Angela talked about it in terms of perception. So our perception of what's going on right now, as opposed to our perception of what we're anxious or stressed about, the subconscious mind knows no difference. So you can actually take a couple of steps into the future, stand there and what does this look like really good? Like, what does this wedding look like when it's going well? What does this function look like when it's going well? What does my child look like when they go to school? What am I looking like? And you can actually create what you want to de-stress you and give that picture to the subconscious mind. And you come back and you say, okay, what do I need to do to get that picture there? And you start taking little actions, and all of a sudden there's no stress because you've already seen the outcome. That's just one thing. Another thing is magnesium. I don't think people really understand the importance of magnesium. The minute we become stressed, the first mineral to leave your body is magnesium. Mm-hmm. And so when magnesium leaves the body, it takes all the other minerals. It says, come on, potassium, come on, calcium, come on, let's go. And it has a field day, but it rips everything else. And so you become what we call minerally depleted. So I think if anybody can do anything nutritionally, it would be to find a really good source of magnesium. I use it in crystal form. I soak my legs in it, or I hop in a bath and just soak in it for 20 minutes and allow it to come through my hands, my feet, and my skin. I rub it on my body every day in a
What
cream.
about taking it? What about, how much should you take, Linda, if you're going to say, because everybody's onto these pill things, so if they're going to buy the pill, how much,
Yes,
how many
it
milligrams
is going
should
to
they?
be in, and I noticed for the over 50s, they've now included it in the over 50 tablets. I'm not sure about how much, because again, like Angela said, everything's up to the person. Like for me, and the lady that I spoke to at the Mind Body Spirit show, she said to me, it's actually not about your size, it's about the amount of stress you have. So she said, like my husband's 6'2", but he only takes like a teaspoon, where I would need a bucket. So that's why it's just so like Epsom salt. You can hop in a bath or put 2 tablespoons in a laundry tub, in a laundry bucket, put it on the ground and sit and put your feet in it and just for 20 minutes have those beautiful magnesium things coming up into your body.
Linda,
It is a simple thing to do.
But Linda, you've touched on something so beautiful, because it's not necessarily putting it on the inside through your mouth, but also putting it on the body through your skin. And so many people don't know that. That's something that I think a lot of people don't understand, that you can get all what you just said through taking care of your body on the outside as well as on the inside.
Yes, because it comes through the skin. Sorry, Angela.
One thing I want to say on that vein, also think about what you're putting on your skin as far as your personal care products, right? From the lotion to the shampoo to the makeup, all of that. Because
it's full of toxic. It's full of toxic material. Yeah, full of it.
Well, I think if you look on the product and there's an E in it, an E, the letter E, that would be the first thing I would throw out of the house, because E means ethoxylate. So if it's DES, GHEA, there's a whole lot of substances out there with an E in them. And when I first started on this health regime, I just went like that. I cleared out everything and just found sources of products that don't have the E. And E is ethoxylate, and it is a poison to the proteins in our body. So when we're putting it on our skin or taking it, whatever, it is so harmful. And by eliminating that, I got well.
I love what you're saying, Linda, because what you're saying, and also Angela, is that we really need to start educating ourselves as to what things mean, magnesia, E, all these A and the D, and to actually read what they mean and what they do to your body, and how you should buy this one and not this one or this one, whatever, but how much you need. Because sometimes people say, yes, take E. They start taking gobbles and gobbles of E, and they don't realize how what they're doing with their inside. Have no idea, because I happen to know that E is not very good for your body. I happen to know that because something.
No, I didn't say I just want to be really clear on that. I just said look at the E in your products. It actually means it's an ethoxylate, which is a poison. So just get rid of products that have the E in it. The dishwashing liquids, the shampoos, the body lotions. If they've got an E in them, an DES or SLEA or whatever it is, then I would not be buying that product. Because ethoxylate is like Agent Orange.
We need to educate ourselves what everything means and what we really need in our body. That's what we
absolutely need. There's ignorance and there's knowledge. We go and get some knowledge, we can do so much.
Does that answer your question, Steve?
Well, yeah. I mean, partially, yes. I mean, what
the other part we didn't get.
I still want to make sure that everybody gets that what I talked about earlier, the food, the air, and the water. It's all about toxicity. So how does our body currently deals with toxicity, Angela?
Well, we have lots of methods of natural detoxification, from our breath to our sweat. Obviously, our liver and our kidneys play the brunt of it in the body, But
that would be under normal conditions. The conditions that we're living today are not normal.
And that's part of it. And I think that so many of us are walking around with heavy metal toxicity, and our bodies weren't designed, because there are literally hundreds of thousands of synthetic chemicals out there that don't biodegrade, that just once they're released into the environment, they linger around. We use them to, all personal care products, food, our weed, taking care of the lawn, the weed pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, all of those things. And like you said, those are not, our bodies were not designed to break those things down. We don't have the enzymatic pathways to break down all of those things. As soon as we start to put things that are synthetic in our body doesn't recognize it, and not only does it create a burden on top of that, but we're also not giving our body what it needs. So we're not giving it the nutrients. So yes, it's tricky. This is probably the biggest question. I read somewhere that by 2030, 1 in 2 people are going to be diagnosed with cancer, and to me, that is just largely a result of what you said, toxicity
and diabetes
in our air, in our water. And so I don't know that I have a good answer to that question, other than being your own advocate and going and getting, I would say, blood work is really important, just to see what am I deficient in, what am I walking around in a state of inflammation, which lots of people are, and which most health professionals believe is the root or the stem of all chronic illness. So just going and if your health insurance company won't pay for it, it might be worth it to you to go and have all of your, a complete blood panel to see where you're at and what you can do, and
you're lacking and what you need. And funny, I did that yesterday.
And I think I've got all that now, and I think people. That's a conversation, Angela, because I think, like I had my hair sample done, and I had the blood test, and I was eating really good food. Like I was eating blueberries and eggs, and I have fruit as my first thing in the morning. Because the body wants to detox from 4 a.m. until 12 noon. And so we should be helping it. I mean, what do we do when we get up of a morning? We instantly go to the toilet. The body wants to detox. It's detoxing from our nutrition that happens while we're sleeping. And so we need to help that rather than shove cereals and breads and toast and stuff into our system. We just need to learn to appreciate,
I have to say that there was a funny thing that
we do that's little.
Yeah, there's a funny thing that came over the news yesterday, and I was quite shocked by this. They were talking about the water in Vegas, how they recycle the water, and I'm listening to this, and I'm half listening because I'm really not concentrating on water, but what I heard was that we mustn't put fat down the sink, and we mustn't put this down the sink, and we mustn't put this and this and this. And I'm thinking of all the people that don't do that. So this all goes into the recycling of water. So there's water that has been recycled, but is it really being recycled properly and correctly? I was shocked by this.
Yeah, because we're putting so much garbage down the toilet and down the sinks.
Yeah.
That our filtering systems are not designed to filter out.
Well, that's what suddenly struck me, and I'm thinking.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, they were talking about the oil on this and that. And I thought, what about the rest of this stuff?
We can't keep up with this stuff. Yeah.
And we're drinking this water. We're drinking more water than we've ever drank before, and then we're getting these contaminated plastic bottles where it sits in a warehouse. And believe me, the warehouse does not have air condition. So some of these warehouses in Vegas get up to 120, and then they take the water out, put it into the store, put it into the cooler. Next thing you know, the people are drinking it. And I don't get this. I don't drink water a lot because of what I think. But I don't know, how do we stop all this, and where do we go with all this?
Well, I know, for example, San Francisco is the first city to ban bottled waters, and I'm really glad that was going to be something I wanted to chime in on, is getting rid of the plastic bottled water, because that is not good for the environment. It makes us increasingly dependent on, petroleum-based products, as well as, like you said, all of the stuff that leaches into the water from being in that plastic bottle. And
so that plastic bottle heats up, and the plastic gets hot very fast, and they're very warm, and then it's got to go somewhere, so it goes on the outside, and then the inside goes in the water, and then everybody's going drinking this water that's got to purify their body. Hello? We're not getting purified.
Well, one other thing I want to say is, so I recently, I'm from Canada, and I was recently visiting some family in Vancouver, and they have, not only do they have a really amazing recycling program, they now take all your house waste. They give you a bucket, all of your trimmings, it's kind of compost, but you can even put more things. Basically everything that you scrape off your plate, instead of putting it down the sink and having, putting it in the in Canada, garbage disposal. I was going to say garburator, which is a Canadian word. And they come and they take it and then they compost it. And so now when you look at the household garbage that comes out, it's very, very minimal. And to me, that's amazing. It's just, I think that we have these ideas out there, you know, urban garden towers, so you can grow fresh herbs and vegetables in your house, in condos, on top of roofs. You know, a French supermarket is now, they have something, they call it Inglorious Fruit, and they sell it for 30% cheaper, and it's all the ugly fruit that nobody wants to eat, except now it's become
because it doesn't look pretty.
Exactly, but it's exactly the same. In the United States, we throw out like 52% of our fruits and vegetables because they go stale. It's like how there. I think that there are innovative ideas to start shifting, you know, things like, you know, banning bottled waters, like, you know, composting household waste. I think that there's some really amazing ideas out there, and it just requires us to get excited and to think about, okay, not only how does this impact my health, but how does this impact the health of my community, the health of my city, the health of my country. And I think it's there. We need to have a better way of getting these ideas out there.
My mother and father had a compost. It's funny you should talk about a compost because my mum and dad had one. And everything went into it. And it used to get very, very hot because that's what happens. And then they would have their vegetable garden and they put all this stuff around. I mean, I was a kid. I didn't know what they were doing. But maybe that's why I'm so healthy. They brought me up in this very healthy way. No, really, we never had any of the garbage food. And my mother would not have it in the house. But she used to do her own vegetables. I remember all these vegetables and tomatoes and cucumbers and squash. Potatoes. We didn't have Idaho potatoes. We had English potatoes.
Angela, it's a good point that you made also because you know what we eat. We grew up on a farm, and of course, I think what people don't realise is the riper the fruit, the more antioxidants are in that fruit. And so it's us that's causing the problem. We're saying we want our bananas green, you know, we want our fruit green so we can have it hanging around the house for a week so we don't have to go shopping all the time. Well, we've created the problem because there's no antioxidant value in a green banana. It's in the riper banana that we're throwing in the bin. The bin's getting the best nutrition. So, you know, when you learn that, it's like when we lived on the farm, we'd go and we had to pick 8 cases of fruit before we went and played our tennis or whatever we were going to do. And I'm not silly. I went to the fruit trees that were near the chook pens, chickens, I think you guys call them, and because they were the bigger fruit and the riper ones came off really easy. But the ones, you know, if we're going to, there's just so many little things we can do, like go for the riper fruit. Get a filtration system in your water system inside your house. Australia legally puts 50 chemicals in our water, God help them, to help us.
Including your shower, Linda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is going on to
And
your
you say
body.
now,
Leave the shower.
Oh, I got to tell you a story. Guys, I got to tell you a story.
I gotta tell you one too, but you go first.
I'll tell you, I'll make it quick. The other day it's pouring with rain. So I look out and I see the rain coming down. I dash out of my back door and I take every bit of clothing off. I go out of the back door and I literally let the heavens pour all over me. And it was the most beautiful feeling of this water just running all the way through my hair and through my body and everything. But then when I came in, I put my dressing gown on. But the tingling feeling of it drying, I didn't dry myself because I didn't want to, you know, rub it off. And the tingling feeling of it drying, but talk about heaven's water. Oh my goodness. So if anytime anybody gets the chance to do that, go out in the rain. You've got to be naked though. You can't have any clothes on. So you've got to make sure you're naked.
Were you arrested?
Thank you for the great visual.
Totally. Yeah, but I'm talking about water, and very few people, I don't know anybody that has done this, but to let that water soak through your body was the most beautiful. That was, talk about pure, Angela, that was pure water.
Yes. I love that.
That shocked all of you. That shut you all up. But do it, because who cares? We've all got the same body. Come on, some are female and some are male. Big deal. You know, so I come from Europe, so it doesn't really matter.
That's a whole different conversation.
Yes.
A different show. so let me share mine. So this is like checking into reality. So this has to do with, you know, how ignorant people are. But that's because there's no place to get the education. So let me share this. This is going to be short as well. So the other day, I'm watching my roommate doing this. Do you know he's eating leftovers from the night before for breakfast? He goes into the refrigerator and takes out this styrofoam. You know, they give you these styrofoam things to put your.
Boxes, yeah.
I think that should be outlawed. Those styrofoam things.
Mm-hmm.
So he takes that thing, puts it into the microwave, and heats it up and eats what's in it. What's wrong with that picture, Angela?
Oh, so many things.
So many things.
Well,
Easy to talk about what's wrong
I'm
with it.
surprised the container didn't fully melt around his food, but yes, of course, styrofoam, incredibly toxic, and then you put it in something like a microwave, which many people in the health world would say, don't use your microwave,
Just
especially...
Nuking it, yeah.
Yes, but yeah, to me, I'm still a little dumbfounded that in this day and age, people would want to microwave a styrofoam container. That
They do. They do. I just want you to know that I've seen it, and I told him why not to do it, and he still did it.
Yeah, but that also means that they've got less work. They don't have to clean a dish. They don't have to do anything. They just take it out, put it in the microwave, eat it, and throw it out. They haven't got to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're doing these days, trying to shortcut.
So we're kind of coming to the end of the show, but I feel that if we just teach people these two things about, which is how to put nutrition back into their body and how to detox, if you could spend a little more time on that before the show ends, in terms of what things people could do to get more nutrition in and detox the body, I think we would get a dent into this global health crisis. What do you think?
I think so.
Well, yes. Like I mentioned, way more fruits and vegetables, include healthy fats, nuts and seeds, and lots of, I would say, legumes. And like I said, but really I don't feel there is one-size-fits-all nutrition. And I can't just say, I mean, I can give general ideas, but I know for myself that I need animal products, and so I buy organic, pasture-raised, local ground or local beef that I can eat. So as long as if you can buy local, buy fresh, eat many different colors, real natural colors, not synthetic colors, as many natural colors as you can, because colors equal different nutrients. So bringing those into the body. And then being very mindful about the carbohydrates that you eat, nothing that's white and processed, something that has the higher fiber that it has, the better. Nothing with, try to reduce as much added sugar as you possibly can. I think those are pretty strong nutritional advice. As far as detoxification. So
hang on before you go any further. So I just want to, just from my own personal experience, I've been only on this health kick that I'm on for the last 2 years. So you probably have a few years on me. But what's changed for me in terms of when I go to the grocery store? When I go into the grocery store, I just make a right, which is where all the, in most stores here in America, that's where all the fruits and vegetables are. And I pretty much do not have any use for the rest of the store.
Yes. And if you are buying something packaged, if it has more than 5 ingredients on the back, avoid it. If you can't read, an ingredient on the back of a package, avoid it. So, like you said, it's fresh as possible. You want to eat whole foods. That would probably be my overarching eat whole foods. So things that are as close to their natural state as possible. As soon as you start to process things, you start to get the addition of a whole bunch of other chemicals, as well as through the act of processing, you lose a lot of the nutrients. So eat whole foods is probably, in as many colors as possible, is probably my best advice for nutrition.
Yeah.
Can I give you a very quick detoxing thing that I was given when I had lupus from the professor at Sydney University? For 3 days, you can do it every month or every 2 months, but you just, for the breakfast, you have warm fruit. Everything has to be warm because our cells are 38 degrees. Our blood is 38. Our skin is 34 degrees. So if we have everything warm, so warm fruit, cut up pears, whatever. Stay away from your heavy fruits like bananas, but I do berries and strawberries and whatever. We're very blessed here in Australia with so much fruit and veg. And I do that for breakfast with a little bit of warm water, and you can eat as much as you like of it, and then warm water, herbal teas in between. For lunch and for dinner, it's only steamed vegetables. And get the variety, like you said. Put the root vegetables in. I do broccolis and you know, Brussels sprouts and things that you may not eat the rest of the time. I love all that stuff. You know.
Is potato a vegetable? Just checking.
Yes, it is, but it's a white vegetable that converts to sugar. So you can put a bit of sweet potato in, but stay with the other colours. And so do that for lunch and do that for dinner. And that's it for 3 days, and warm water in between. And honest to heavens, by the third day, you are weeing like there's no tomorrow. The only reason we hold so much fluid in our body is to digest the oncoming fats. And therefore, if you haven't got the oncoming fats, the fluid says, great, I'm not needed right now, and you could lose up to half a stone. You could lose, it's a lot. And it feels phenomenal. You actually feel amazing. And it's just 3 days. You're still eating, but you're detoxing the cells, all the cells in your body. Beautiful.
Awesome.
So,
what about
a couple
you,
more. Yes. So you can do very specific programs for detoxification. Just in general life, moving your body, getting exercise, your lymphatic system, which is kind of your garbage disposal system, doesn't move unless it doesn't work properly unless you're moving. So you need it. It works on muscle pumps. So you need to move your body. Sweating is excellent, whether that's through exercise or a sauna or steam. Just sweating helps to detoxify. Drinking
or it could be sex.
Yeah, it could be.
Just make sure you're sweating.
Why did I know you were going to say that?
It's a great exercise, don't you think?
Yeah. And drinking lots of water, and then also what Linda said about waking up and taking it easy, not filling yourself full of heavy carbs when you get up. I love my bacon and eggs on weekends or whatever, but having that time, that fasting period for your body is a natural part of it should be a natural part of the way that we live. So, and if you really feel like if you suffer from a chronic illness, I would go to nutrition, I would go see a holistic nutritionist, and I would get on a very specific, for your needs, detoxification program. Because if it's already to the point where you're suffering from a chronic illness, you need to have a much more calculated, specific program designed for your specific needs.
Awesome. And you need both, don't you? We need to be detoxing and nutrifying. We need to make sure that not just pumping in rubbish, but detox and nutrify. That's how we have wellness.
Yeah, this is how strongly I feel about this. So any illness that people have, I don't care what it is, if it's cancer, diabetes, whatever it is, there's thousands of them. I don't think we should be even dealing with the illness until our nutrition is balanced and we're detoxified. Until we accomplish those two things, don't even treat the illness.
Absolutely, Steve. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. It's what you put in your mouth.
Yeah. So.
And your mouth.
What you put in your mouth is what you are. So if you put in the bad stuff,
Yeah. This show was absolutely awesome. I had so much. I don't want to say just fun, but I felt that we really educated the public within this hour. I don't know how you feel, but I feel that I think people can get it. How bad of a situation we're in and what can they do, and everybody can do something. Everybody can do these two things. Yeah. Really. Yeah.
Well, it's your own body. That's all you have. You don't have anything else. Everything else is material things. But your body, if you don't look after your body, what have you got?
Absolutely. Well,
okay, Steve.
Wonderful.
I loved it. Thank you, Angela. You were fantastic.
Thank you for having me on. That was awesome.
You're very passionate and very knowledgeable. And I'm not a doctor, and I'm not practicing any of this other than just doing what I do for myself. And it's been a very interesting journey. And I'm just at the beginning of it myself, but it certainly is working. So thank you so much for being with us, Angela, and thank you for Ninan and Linda as well for being the cast on the show today. It's been fantastic. If there's anything that we said or did on the show that touched, moved, and inspired you, please go to consciousevolutionmedia.com and interact with us. Go to our YouTube channel and watch all the shows, especially this one, and let's see if we can get these really good educational shows to PBS. That's where there are 100 million eyeballs, and we need to get this out there, really.
Absolutely. Amazing.
The more people can get educated, the better. So thank you all. I love you all. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.